Hello and welcome to the Power of Words. I'm Buck, and today I'll be reading chapter 5 of my book, A Child Shall Rise. The title of this chapter is Bostrel. William Blake slowly removed a cover plate on the little droid, exposing its primary drive system. He pulled a small device from his agency field bag, wired it into the droid's system, and activated it, causing the droid to beep several times. William exhaled nervously. Here goes nothing, he thought. Voice command override, code 462. Acknowledge authorization. The droid emitted a long, sustained beep, and a red light lit up on its front display. William held his breath. Come on, you can do it. Please do. The red light turned green. Voice command override authorization acknowledged. Yeah, it worked, William thought, finally remembering to breathe. He began to access the droid's subroutines, creating an alternate set of commands. If I can't get out of here to get food and water, at least I can get this droid to do it for me. But I have to make sure it can do that without being detected. Nearly 2 hours later, as William was still giving new commands, he heard the other droids powering up. Fearing the droid he was working on might also get called into action, he quickly aborted his final, unfinished command, disconnected the override device, and reattached the cover plate. A moment later, his droid powered up and joined the others as they exited through the hatch, back out into the maze of the inner agency. William slumped down, leaning back against the power station. This is my last hope. If that little droid fails to complete my programming or is discovered, it's all over. I'll die of thirst right here, and no one will ever know what happened to me. Agent Gray stood outside of an entry hatch marked Restricted Access, Level 5 only. Motionless, he trained his senses to focus on what was happening on the other side of the hatch. Although his keen eyes were useless here, his ears could detect the usual humming of electrical equipment, and he could smell the faint, lingering odor of perspiration. What he did not detect was crying, yelling, or movement. He still sleeps. Good. Punching in his personal clearance code, Gray stepped into the room. Broken toys, torn clothing, and scattered food littered the floor. You've been naughty again, Bostrel. Walking over to a small bed in the corner of the room, Gray looked down at the sleeping Quinsonian child, shackled to his bed by plastisteel cuffs on his wrists and ankles. Bostrel's breathing was slow and deep. The colors of his skin shifted and changed, like gently rolling waves in the ocean. So peaceful and calm in sleep. Agent Gray removed his black jacket, placing it at the foot of Bostrel's bed. Taking a hypo syringe from his pocket, Gray injected Bostrel with something that would counteract the sleeping agent the boy had been given. He then toggled a switch housed on the bed frame, which opened the shackles holding the child. It's time to get up now, Bostrel. I want you to pick up all the broken toys and put them in the garbage chute. After we finish your training, I'll let you see Lyra. And I have a special surprise for you. The young boy slowly opened his eyes, rubbing them with the back of his hands. He looked at his toys, then looked blankly at Agent Gray. I said... Gray stopped himself. Oh, that's right. He leaned in to touch Bostrel's arm. Please put the broken toys into the garbage chute. No, not with your hands. I want you to do it the way we've been learning. Start with all the ones that are blue. Bostrel looked around at the toys on the floor, then stretched both arms out, palms down. Every toy that had blue on it began to rise off the floor. Very good. Now move them to the garbage. The toys that were hovering in air suddenly flew across the room, smashing into the wall, then falling to the floor. With his hand on the boy's shoulder, Gray could feel Bostrel's frustration at failing the task. It's all right. That was a good start. You got all the blue ones, and you're getting stronger every day. Now try the food scraps that you threw on the ground last night. Picture them all going into the chute. Bostrel closed his eyes, again reaching his hands out and thinking of those awful chloro sprouts that he hated so much. They began to rise in the air, and as he moved his arms, the vegetables moved across the room toward the garbage chute. Good, you're controlling it. Now keep the food in the air. Raise the flap on the chute and put it all in there. Every time Bostrel thought of the garbage chute, the chlorophyll sprouts would begin to lower until he concentrated on just them again. You can do it. Just breathe and picture it happening. The flap lifted slightly, then down, then up, then down again. Gray felt anger begin to surge from the boy. Breathe, Bostrel. Calm your emotions. Don't let... The chlorophyll sprouts began to crumple, like they were being squeezed in someone's fist, and they oozed green joys as they dropped to the ground. Bostrel pushed Gray's hand off of his shoulder and walked over to the garbage chute, his right hand reaching out toward the flap. It flew open, then slammed shut. It did it again, and again, and again. A smirk came to Agent Gray's mouth. Good. If you can't show me control, at least show me power. The flap was ripped off and flew across the room. Bostrel, looking at the garbage chute, vocalized an unintelligible yell of exasperation, and the entire thing began to crumple, just like the chlorophyll. Just then the intercom crackled to life, and Cilantro Smythe's voice filled the room. Agent Gray, I'm sending the girl in. If she can't calm him down, I expect you to neutralize the situation. Either way, once you're finished, report immediately to my office. Gray slowly turned his head and looked up at the monitor in the upper corner of the room. Everything is under control, Director Smythe. The door slid open and Lyra entered, glancing nervously at Agent Gray before rushing to wrap her arms around her little brother. She could feel his frustration and anger, which she took from him, but she returned to him only love and reassurance. Despite being only 6, Lyra's empathic abilities were quite advanced, and she demonstrated amazing control. She drew out her brother's negative emotions, processed them within herself without letting them affect her, and then filled him with positive emotions. Bostrel became placid, clinging to his sister. Agent Gray gathered his jacket, then walked to the exit, looking back at the siblings. You've done well, Lyra. You may stay with your brother until I return. I expect this mess to be cleaned up. Cilantro Smythe sat behind a huge desk in the office that he referred to as the command center. Indeed, from his desk, he could see, hear, and control almost everything that happened in all areas of the sprawling agency complex. He took great pride in knowing the inner workings of every department, as well as all the personnel running those departments. Watching a monitor that showed the entrance to his office, he saw Gray approaching. Enter. Agent Gray, I have humored you by allowing you to keep those Quinsonian pets of yours, but enough is enough. I simply cannot allow that freak to continue destroying agency property and injuring personnel. Sure, you've taught him a few interesting party tricks, but he simply has no self-control. And his little temper tantrums are continually growing more dangerous to everyone and everything around him. And don't think it's escaped my notice that you've brought in another child with similar abilities. At least this one is human. We are not running a daycare for sideshow rejects. I'm sorry, but you've wasted enough time on them. Dispose of them all, immediately. Gray slowly walked to Smythe's desk, towering over the little man. With a deep, raspy voice, Gray began to speak. I have been your loyal servant and have always followed your commands. Smythe opened his mouth to speak, but then thinking better of it, stopped himself. There was a look in Agent Gray's eyes that he recognized, and it terrified him. Gray continued, but these freaks, as you say, are more important than you realize. His voice began getting louder. You think they are dangerous now when they are only just discovering what they are capable of, but can't yet control? You've asked our development department to build you new weapons that no one has seen before. And I tell you now that these 3 children, under my training and command, will become weapons of unimaginable power. After driving for miles through the dilapidated streets of Old City, Janet finally pulled the hover car over in an open area where they would be able to see anyone trying to approach them. James, what are we gonna do? James had been thinking, trying to come up with a plan of some kind, but hadn't got far on it. We have to assume that we are a liability to the agency and that they are not just going to let us go. I think that right now, we're in more danger if we leave Old City than if we stay. Bill chirped in the back seat. I don't like it here. I want to go home. The other children all started voicing their agreement with Bill. Your dad's right, Janet said, hardly believing the sound of her own words. For now, we need to stay here. James reached over to take his wife's hand. Honey, I've been working on a plan, but I need you to trust me. I need you to stay here with the kids. But where are you going? You can't leave us. I won't be gone long, but we're defenseless out here. I need to get a blaster and find someplace safer for us to stay. There aren't many hover cars still running in the city, and this one draws way too much attention. But it'll be okay. I'll come back as soon as I can. But honey, if anything happens, if anyone approaches, get yourselves out of here. Promise me. No, you can't. Promise me, Janet. Janet's heart was in her throat, and her eyes were beginning to fill with tears. I promise, she whispered. I'm going with you, Dad, Roy spoke up excitedly. Then Gary agreed. Yeah, me too. Nobody's going with me. I need you to all stay here and help look after your mom. Keep the doors locked, and don't get out of this car until I get back. I mean it. With that, James Nova stepped out into the darkened streets of Old City, and with his family looking on, disappeared into the distance. Moving slowly, staying low, and keeping his back to the walls of abandoned office buildings, James hoped to avoid being detected by anyone who may be roaming the streets at this hour. Cautiously rounding a corner, he saw that he was approaching a large plaza that once was lined with shops, eateries, and business offices. As he quietly moved forward, he could hear the sound of men talking. Come on, man, I need it now. I'm crashing hard. I'll pay you double creds tomorrow. Tomorrow's no good. Besides, this is a really good batch. It's going for 60 credits a tube. You got anything on you worth that much? Yeah, I got these shoes. They're real, Rigor hide. I'll give them to you for a tube. What you say? Nice try, Twitch. But you're not ripping me off with fake merchandise again. Now get out of here before I lose my patience with you. Okay, forget the shoes. What you want? I got connections, man. I know people. Just name it and I can get it for you. James stepped out of the shadow of a building, wondering if he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. How about a blaster? I'll give you 60 credits for it if you can get one. Twitch wheeled around to see who was there, as the mist dealer reached into his coat pocket. I don't know you, but if you're looking for trouble, you're going to be real dead real soon. James raised both hands, showing he wasn't carrying a weapon. No trouble, just looking to make a business deal. 60 credits for whoever can get me a blaster. The dealer laughed. I got a better idea. I'll take all your credits, and I'll let you walk out of here in one piece. James slowly removed his jacket, folding it up and placing it on the ground. Look, you low-life piece of trash. We can do this the easy way, come to a mutually beneficial agreement, and everyone walks away happy, or we can do it the hard way. It doesn't matter to me. I've already killed tonight. I can get you a blaster, Twitch stuttered. It's a good one, too. You give me 60 creds. He then turned to face the dealer. And I'll get a tube from you. Nobody dies, and everyone's happy. Twitch led James out of the plaza, down several narrow alleyways, and to a ladder that was attached to an old warehouse. Pausing to look around, he was satisfied that no one had followed them, or was watching. As Twitch began to climb the ladder, he looked back at James. You wait here, man. I'll get it and bring it to you. Keep a lookout and let me know if anyone's coming. James looked around cautiously. Everything in his gut told him this was a dangerous situation and that Twitch could be setting him up. But he also knew that he and his family didn't stand a chance in Old City unless he could get a blaster. Then their odds of survival would improve slightly. For long, tense moments, James' eyes darted from the window that Twitch disappeared through to the alleyways and other nearby buildings, and to the overgrown bushes that were reclaiming ground from cracked streets and walkways. "Here it is," Twitch called out, waving an old dusty blaster out of a third-story window. Skipping the last few ladder rungs, he jumped to the ground and held out the blaster with both hands, like he was presenting some lost treasure. "Told ya, she's a beauty, isn't she? They don't make 'em like this no more. 80 creds and she's yours." The deal was 60 credits. "But that thing is so old and dusty, maybe I'll give you 40. "Oh, okay, 60. Hand it over." We do it at the same time, and no tricks. Moving slowly, both men reached out at the same time, making the exchange. Twitch took 2 steps backwards, then spun around and began to run off, calling out, "Sucker!" as he ran. Well, that can't be good, James thought, examining the blaster. Other than being an older model and extremely dusty, it appeared to be fully intact. Aiming at a large rock about 15 feet away, he pulled the trigger, or at least tried. It was seized in place, and no matter how hard James squeezed it, it wouldn't budge. Great job. I just paid 60 credits for a useless antique. All right, so that was Chapter 5 of A Child Shall Rise. Join me next time for Chapter 6, which is titled Staying Alive. Thanks for watching The Power of Words. I'm Buck. Have a great day. Please like and subscribe.